Hello, welcome back to my channel. Even though we're in the middle of summer, we're celebrating Christmas in July. Today I've got some amazing Christmas themed crafts that will bring a little winter wonderland into your warm weather days. If you're looking for some fun, creative crafts, these projects are perfect for you. Hi, my name is Katie from Lady Red Crafting. Let's get started with some Christmas in July. I love finding things that are ordinary and transforming them into Christmas. This home decor piece I found at Dollar Tree, and we're going to deconstruct it. And this is really easy to do. There's just a few staples on the back side, so I'm using a screwdriver and a pair of pliers, and I'm just pulling out those staples. And I'm going to save the twine and the beads to use in a later project, and we're just going to use these circles. Do want to remove the paper from the tops of these circles, so I'm using a little bit of water and some wet paper towels, and I'm just going to lay those over the top, and this will allow the paper to loosen up so it'll be easy to scrape off any of that excess paper. The tool that I'm using to scrape this off is just my Cricut scraper, but you could use like a paint scraper. That would work just as well. And once everything is removed, I do grab my zip sander, but a sanding block would work great. And I just sand the top off just to make sure I get any of that extra glue off of the round. So this craft was inspired by Sammy at Unicorn Dust and Design. She did this wonderful project using sheet music. And so I printed out some sheet music, Oh Holy Night, Christmas Tree, and Jingle Bells. What I did is I shrunk the image down a little bit because I wanted more of the notes to be on the small ornament here. And I just went ahead and I traced a circle around the title and some of that sheet music. And I'm going to cut these out. And now that we have all three of our sets of sheet music cut out, I'm taking these up to the kitchen and I'm using some Irish breakfast black tea from Trader Joe's, and I'm just going to brew up a small little container of this. And one of the things that I saw Sammy do for staining was using the actual tea bag to stain everything, and I've never done that before. Usually I just soak this in tea, so I thought that was a really cool idea, so I'm trying this out. And this worked fantastic, so thank you, Sammy, for this inspiration. Next, I'm going to go around each of these little circles, and I'm just going to tear the edge, and with it wet from the tea, this makes it really easy. To assist in the dry time, I'm going to lay these out on a small cookie sheet and put these in the oven at 250 for about 10 minutes. Now let's go back to our little rounders. I'm taking some painter's tape and I'm just taping them down to a paintable surface. These are just small scrap pieces of cardboard. Once I have everything set up, I am going to take my Waverly chalk paint in the color plaster and give a nice coat of paint over the top layer of these rounders. And once that paint has dried, I grab my Mod Podge in matte and I'm doing a coat of Mod Podge over the top of the paint. Now once that Mod Podge is dry on all three of our rounders, I'm going to grab that sheet music that's out of the oven. And we'll start out with the one that says, Oh Holy Night. And I am centering this on my rounder. And if you notice on these rounders from Dollar Tree, they have a little notch out of them at the top and the bottom. So I want that to be at the top of my ornament and the other one on the bottom of my ornament. And using a piece of parchment paper and a hot iron, I am just going to iron on these pieces of sheet music to our little rounders. Then we will repeat this step on our other two rounders. So I lay down the sheet music on top of the dried Mod Podge, and then I take a piece of parchment paper and layer that over the top. And using a hot iron or a heat press, you just iron that piece of paper down, and what this will do is allow the Mod Podge to adhere to the back side of that sheet music, and everything will stick down with no wrinkles. And then just remove that piece of parchment paper and save it for another time. And now that our rounders have the sheet music attached, I do take that same Mod Podge and matte, and I'm going to do a coat of Mod Podge over the top of the sheet music to seal everything in. Now, once our Mod Podge is completely dry, I'm taking some black multi-surface paint from Folk Art, and this is in satin, and I'm putting a little of that in a bowl, and using a very small brush, I'm going to do the outside rim or perimeter in black. And having these on that piece of cardboard makes it really easy to do that outside painting. And then while the paint is still wet, I'm taking a different brush, and this brush is completely dry, and I'm just going to go around the outside of the circle on the front side, and I'm just going in a downward motion and just feathering a little bit of distressing around the outside edge of these ornaments. Now, once everything is dry, let's go ahead and decorate the fronts of each of these ornaments. And I chose these songs specifically to decorate them differently. So, Oh Holy Night, I'm taking a decal, and I cut this out on my Cricut Joy using a already made template inside Cricut Design Space. I'm just going to center this in my little round. And this is really similar to a sign that Sammy made over on Unicorn Dust and Designs, in a much larger scale. Just to make sure nothing peels off, I did do another small coat of my Mod Podge and matte over the top of the decal. Now for the final step on this ornament, I am taking some 1/4-inch satin ribbon, and I'm making what looks like a little fish, and I'm hot gluing that at the bottom where the tails are. And once that hot glue sets, I'm going to hot glue this on the back side of the ornament. And this allows for a beautiful loop hanger that looks high-end, but is really simple to do. And then we'll just hot glue that to the back and flip it over. Next, I'm going to put a little satin bow on here, and this is the same ribbon I used for the hanger. And I'm just trimming this up because it's a little bit bigger than what I would like. And I'm going to hot glue this to the top. But I want to make sure we can still see the words, Oh Holy Night. So I'm just going to go really high up at the top there so we can see the title of our song. And our first ornament in our set is complete. I love how this turns out. It's just a classic look. It looks very high-end, but was very easy to make. Now for our second ornament in this set, I am using a little wood star that I had in my stash, and I'm just going to tape this down to a paintable surface, and we'll use our multi-surface from Folk Art in black and paint this star on the front and around the perimeter. Now grabbing our Oh Christmas Tree ornament, I'm going to make that same loop where I take the 1/4-inch satin ribbon, I hot glue it at the bottom and make a little fish, and then I flip the ornament over, and then I'm going to hot glue the little X at the bottom of the fish onto the back of our ornament. Now it's time to decorate the front of this ornament, and I am using that little star we painted and a little pick, and I just cut this out of a pine pick that I had, and I shaped it in the shape of a Christmas tree. And using some hot glue, I just put that down at the bottom of our ornament. And while we have our hot glue out, I'm going to hot glue our little bow at the top of the ornament. Now for the star on top of the tree, I did not want to use hot glue because I am not that good with hot glue to get that into a thin line like that. So I'm taking my Elaine's tacky glue, and I'm just going to paint the back of the star with the Elaine's tacky glue. And this will make it easier for me to place this on the top of our tree. And it does dry clear, so you don't need to worry about any excess there. And I just put that on the top of our little tree. And now here is our second ornament in our trio. I love how this turns out, and I love how you can just mix things up with the ornament a little bit just to give it its own individual flair. So for our last ornament in this set, I am going to do the same thing with that 1/4-inch ribbon, and we'll make that little fish, and we're going to hot glue that on the back for our hanger. Once that has dried, we can flip that over and we can decorate the front. And this one is Jingle Bells. So as you can guess, we are going to use some bells on the front of this. I did take a small piece of a pick from Christmas and I just hot glued that to the front. And I'm taking the bells and I'm going to hot glue that to the bottom so they look like little berries on the pick. Now, once those bells are attached, I hot glue the bow to the very top. And our third ornament in this set is complete. I just love how this turns out. I like all three of these ornaments. I'm not sure if I have a favorite, but I'd love to hear if you enjoyed these ornaments and if you have a favorite. So please leave a comment below on which one of these ornaments were your favorite. Oh Holy Night, Oh Christmas Tree, or Jingle Bells. Here's a fun sign you can make using a scrap piece of wood, or you can get panels like this also from the Dollar Tree, and you could use one of those. I'm taking this piece of wood and putting it on a paintable surface, and using my Waverly chalk paint in Elephant, I am going to paint around the border of this piece of wood. And what you'll notice here is I'm leaving a rough rectangle in the center of this piece of wood. Then I'm going to come back in with some Waverly chalk paint in the color plaster. And once that elephant gray has dried, I'm just going to paint a rough little rectangle in the center. Don't worry, if you mess up, you can always come back around with a little bit of paint like I did there and just cover up anything that doesn't look right. I did want a more polished look around the edges, so I took the elephant paint and I painted the frame of this piece of wood. Now I'm going to grab one of these napkins out of my stash, and this is a Merry Christmas Gnome napkin, and I believe I got this at Home Goods. And I am just taking some painter's tape to remove the back 2 layers of the napkin. Using a paintbrush and some water, I am going to frame out one of these gnomes and 2 of the trees. I will remove the Merry Christmas portion. While we're framing out this adorable gnome, let's talk about this fun playlist I'm a part of, Recreation Inspiration. I co-host this every month with Lily D Creations, and our guest host this month is Craftacular. This playlist is so much fun. My inspiration this month is Sammy from Unicorn Dust and Design. She is amazing. I love her techniques and style. I have linked the inspiration video, the guest host, the host, and the playlist in my description box below. So really, please go check all of these wonderful creators out. They are so amazing and coming up with some creative Christmas in July crafts. Thank you so much for watching, and back to our video. Now that we have our gnome all ready to go, I do a quick fit check with my board. And I realize I need to cover up a little bit more of that plaster colored paint. So I'm using that elephant paint again. And I'm just going to frame it out a little bit more so we don't see any of that plaster paint. And if you haven't decoupaged with napkins before, the reason why I did the plaster paint in the center is by painting a white or a lighter colored surface underneath where you're going to put the napkin allows for the napkin to be more vibrant and the colors to show through better when you put that napkin down. Now that our paint has dried, I take my Mod Podge and mat, and I'm just going to take a paintbrush and paint the white area in the center of this board. And once the Mod Podge has dried, I laid down my napkin. And using a piece of parchment paper, I'll layer that over the top and take my hot iron and iron the napkin down. This will allow for the Mod Podge to heat up and make sure that the napkin adheres nicely to our piece. And by ironing it, you have no wrinkles, which is amazing. For our next step here, I do seal the napkin in using my Mod Podge and mat. Now, once this has dried, I do take my Elephant Waverly chalk paint and I'm going to pour some into a little bowl here. Next, I grab some baking soda and I'm going to add that to the bowl, and I'm going to make a thicker sort of paint. I don't want it to be too pasty, but I do want it to be really thick. Now, once you're satisfied with the thickness of your paint mixture, I'm going to take this and brush this around the full perimeter of this gnome. Now, once the frame is completely coated with this textured paint, we set this aside to dry, and this does take about 2 hours. Once this is completely dry, I take my Waverly White wax, and this wax is very liquidy. I didn't realize how wet it would be, but it does work. If you had a thicker white paste, it may work a little bit better. And I'm just going to apply this with a lint-free cloth, and I'm just going over the top of the gray baking soda paint. And this white wax just makes all of those fun little crevices and lines come out in that gray paint. And I learned this technique from Sammy over at Unicorn Dust and Design, and she did this with a fun rub-on transfer for a bear, and hers turned out amazing. I believe she used her DIY paints and wax for this, and she does sell those over on her page if you're interested. Now for this Waverly wax, it does say it needs 24 hours to cure, so I set that aside to dry. Now I want to make a little plaque to go underneath my gnome, and I'm using one of the larger sized popsicle sticks and the color plaster from Waverly, and I'm just going to paint my popsicle stick on a paintable surface. Once the paint has dried, I took my clippers and I clipped the ends off of the popsicle stick, and this made it a nice rectangular shape. I then placed the popsicle stick back down on the pieces of tape so it doesn't move around. Now, I found this adorable stencil on Amazon, and I want to use the one that says North Pole Trading Company. And I am going to take this stencil, and this is a self-adhesive stencil, which is nice, and it is reusable. So I'm going to take this and put this on my popsicle stick, and I'm just going to use the words North Pole Trading Post. To have the North Pole lined up, I do use my redesigned chalk paste in the color Iron Gate, and I'm going to squeegee that over the top of the North Pole and the little lines and dots underneath. Because this popsicle stick is pretty small, we have to wait for this to dry before we do the next piece. And now that everything is dry, I'm going to repeat the same steps with Trading Company. However, the dots are above it this time, so what I'm going to do is line up the T with the letters over there, and then I'll come back in and do the dots afterwards. Now this sign turned out adorable. I am going to figure out where I want to place this plaque, and I decided that I liked it underneath the gnome. So using my hot glue gun, I am just going to attach this plaque, and this sign is complete. I love how this unique little sign turns out. I can't wait to display them over the Christmas holiday. And if you're enjoying this content, please consider hitting that subscribe button below. It really helps my channel grow. Thank you! These adorable spindles are from Woodpecker Crafts, and I did get these on Amazon, but I believe you can also get these on their website. For this craft, I'm going to use 3 spindles and these eye hooks, and I'm using a pair of pliers, and this is how I install the eye hooks onto my spindles. I put the eye hook into my needle nose pliers there, and I'm going to hold that straight, and then twisting the spindle, I screw that into the eye hook. And this takes just a few minutes, and I'm able to do 3 of them real quickly to do this craft. Now that I have my 3 spindles ready, I am going to put these onto a paintable surface and grab out some Waverly chalk paint in the color white. And I made a huge mess here. So if it were me again and I was doing this, I would probably put on a pair of gloves because I got paint all over myself. But I'm just going to paint a nice coat of white paint over the tops and all around these spindles. Once I had all 3 of these painted, I thought that was a little bit too much paint, so I grabbed my baby wipes and I wiped them all down again. So they kind of look like they're whitewashed at this point, and you could totally stop here, but I was going to go a step further, of course. So I grabbed my Delta Creative Luxe Metal Silver and a little bit of the Luxe Metal White, and I'm going to mix those 2 colors together in a bowl. And these paints both have a shimmer to them, and I thought that these would look nice on our Christmas tree because I like to have a little bit of sparkle going on the tree, but this is not too much sparkle. And this was a little bit more silver than I wanted, so I did add a little bit more of that white, and I lightened it up a little bit. Now I'm going to take my brush and do a light coat over the top of all of these different spindles. Once those are dry, I did want to lighten it up a little bit, so I took my Delta Creative Luxe Metal White, and we're going to do a light dry brush over the entire spindle. Once all of these are coated and dried, I'm taking my Mod Podge gloss spray, and I'm going to just spray down each of these spindles to seal them in. Once all of these spindles are sealed, let's go ahead and add our hanger. I decided to use a sheer ribbon, and this sheer ribbon has like a silver grayish tint to it. So I'm going to add that to my eye hook, and I'll make a nice little loop and tie a knot at the top. Now we could stop there, but I thought it would be nice to add a little bow to each one of these. So I am going to hot glue a little bow using the same sheer ribbon to each one of these spindles. So now here's our trio set. These turned out adorable, and this craft is so easy to do. This is perfect for a fun little craft night with some friends. So you've probably seen these ornaments at the Dollar Tree during the Christmas season, and this is a great little ornament staple that you can do all sorts of fun things with. And I'm going to show you something that's a little bit different. I did get this inspiration from Sammy over at Unicorn Dust and Designs, and she does some adorable ornaments using the same technique. I'm starting out by using my Waverly chalk paint in the color plaster, and I'm just giving a nice coat to the outside of this ornament. Next, I'm going to go ahead and grab my soft white clay and a little mold that I have. And I'm using the little leaf-looking mold piece in this set. And I'm just going to make a bunch of these. And I ended up making 12 little clay pieces. If you're curious about the clay and the mold, they're both from Stampery. The clay is really easy to work with, and the mold works amazing. So if you're interested, I will put links in my description box. So now that we have all of our little holly leaves made, I'm taking my Elaine's tacky glue and I'm going to add these to our ornament. Now the clay has not completely dried yet, so it's really easy to mold it onto our ornament, which is amazing. But once you're done, you do have to let this sit for 24 hours for it to dry before you can go ahead and do any painting. Now here is what it looks like the next day. And you could just paint this white and leave it alone, add a Christmas bow and hang this, but I decided that I wanted to go a step further, and I'm just using a lid so I can stand this up easily. I'm using my Tuscan teal from Apple Barrel, and I'm going to completely cover this ornament with the Tuscan teal. And I'm using a chip brush for this because that will allow for me to get in between all the little crevices in this clay pieces. I did end up doing 2 full coats of this teal to make sure that it was very well coated. Now once your paint has dried, I'm using my Waverly white wax, and I'm using a lint-free cloth, and I'm just going to go ahead and wipe this all over my ornament. And this is going to make those clay pieces stand out amazing. And once you're done applying your wax, I put this back onto the lid to allow it to dry overnight. And then the next morning, all you need to do is put the lid right back onto your ornament, and your ornament is all ready to hang on the tree. I love how this turns out. This is such a different way of doing an ornament. It gives a vintage look to it. And there you have it, 6 beautiful Christmas in July projects. I hope you enjoyed these crafts as much as I did. And if you're looking for more fun, creative craft ideas, be sure to check out this next video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss an update. Thank you for watching, and until next time, craft more, stress less.